Guys, I have a 5-part series of an entitled mother who cost her everything in her life. Her family, her job, her children. She became drug addicted, and I'm gonna walk you through each and every step of it. Guys, my name's Mr. Reddito. I cannot wait to read you this one. Let's get right to it. I grew up in a 63-acre chicken farm in a small middle-of-nowhere town. It's a really cozy little place and may even be where I'll retire when the time comes. Who knows? The property had 2 different sides to it. One with the chicken houses and a pasture next to it we let our neighbors use. And the other being a large clearing where we kept hay bales. This side led down to the road, and across that road was another clearing that had a pathway that led to a river. In the middle of these 2 halves was a large hill, with our house at the shop at the top. From the house, you could see all the property. It was gorgeous. My mother also grew up on a farm and had consulted my father about raising their children on a farm, and he agreed. He was working in the trucking industry and still is to this day. He was in and out of the office, but often in my early life, he was out driving. By the time I was 5, he had settled down in the office chair and began dispatching trucks. That was his side of the bringing in the bread, and my mother was supposed to be the farm. It was what she wanted. A lovely house on a farm with kids playing around the yard with 2 lovely loyal dogs to help play and protect the children. Those golden retrievers were incredible. She and Dad had done it. They were living the dream most people wish they had. Here comes act number 1, the divorce. She wasn't doing dishes, she wasn't cleaning, she wasn't doing laundry, nothing. She was throwing all their mess on their bed, and they were no longer sleeping in there. Instead, they were sleeping on the couch because she wasn't cleaning anything. My dad was pulling 60 hours every week, and that's a minimum. Expecting him to come home from work to do more work was just inconsiderate. For as long as they've been together, she was always a slob around the house. At the time, he loved her so much that he hoped to bring the best out of her, as he felt she brought the best out of him. So, he thought her being a stay-at-home mom would be good for her, that it would give her something to do at home and make her more responsible. Maybe break her out of her laziness, I don't know. He already brought in enough bread for the family of 4, so her working wasn't 100% necessary. Her keeping up maintenance around the house and taking care of the kids would be a remarkable load off the father, especially since she wasn't even doing her job anymore. So, to keep the farm afloat, Dad took up arms working and managing the farm on top of his job that he was cutting hours from to keep this up. Then, the fighting started. Dad would confront Mom about her laziness, and she would just dodge the questions, or would just downplay the situation. It did not escalate until she started, quote, spending $2,000 of the $1,500 he made every week, as my dad would put it. The argument turned into shouting, and then eventually, Dad would start to thrash his arms in the shelf or the bar, knocking everything off of it, making her clean it up. Which may sound harsh, but a completely understandable response. She was costing us money for bills and food for stuff we didn't need. On top of the fact she wasn't making money herself, despite the fact it was her that wanted the farm in the first place and accepted the responsibility of managing the farm. My dad is a very strong family man. He would jump off of a cliff if it meant the rest of his family was safe. Mom started blowing through the money that was meant to continue paying the farm, as well as the house, which only made things so much worse. One day, Mom having extra pains. At one point, she even went to the hospital. When she came back, she was prescribed thyroid medicine. My memory is very hazy at this part, so apologies if not everything adds up here. Once she got her hands on this thyroid medicine, she got addicted. She was abusing this stuff regularly, and her hookup was her scumbag doctor. It became evident that she did not even need it anymore, and it was just taking her for whatever high she could get off of it. My father confronted her about this too, and she not only said she was still in pain, but she used it as an excuse to not work on the farm. It was at this point Dad considered divorce, but still wanted to give her a chance. He told her she had until I was 13 to get her shit together, stop abusing drugs, and get a job. Take a guess at what she did. She spent more money. Eventually, the farm just became a barren piece of land with just a few chicken houses on it. They'd pretty much lost all business on it. At the same time, the ceiling of the laundry room had caved in overnight. Dad had gone to investigate and ended up calling an expert. Guess what? We had freaking termites eating our house up. Fantastic. At this point, I think I was about 7 or 8, so I remember seeing most of what happens next. We ended up moving into a mobile home next to our home, as in maybe 50 feet, as in I would see our old house right outside the window. I could clearly see into our old living room. This was where we spent the last few years on the farm until I actually did turn 13. A few years after moving into the mobile home, Dad came home from work. He was cleaning out the closet since it had not been touched since God knows when. He found an odd box in the back, and when he opened it, it was full of just bottles and bottles and bottles of thyroid medication that were empty. He confronted her again, and it came to the excuses. This was the last straw. Dad finally snapped. This one I was there for. At this point, I'd fashioned my parents' bedroom into my own. Dad was always busy with work, and Mom was just too damn lazy to do anything about it. So it became mine. This bedroom was right next to where they were arguing. Dad took everything onto the island in the kitchen and slammed it into the ground. All the shit that was built up for however long that Mom never bothered to clean, he smashed it on the ground. 'Cause again, Dad's pulling a crazy amount of hours to try to keep us afloat. And not only was she costing us money and not working, she was making a mess all over the house. At this point, I had thought my mom was the victim. I was a kid, I was short-sighted as hell. Little did I know how much Mom freaking deserved it. My dad never laid a hand on my mother or any woman, but I wouldn't blame him if he did. I'm not saying it would have been okay, I'm saying I would understand why he would feel the urge to. Dad would never do that. Unless she was endangering someone. He would never attack a woman, let alone his wife. The next day, Dad went to the pharmacy where the doctor who was supplying Mom the thyroid medicine was, and tore his ass a new one. Dad ended up being banned and was just labeled, quote, the crazy guy who came in screaming at doctors just trying to do their job. Yeah. Their job is supplying drug addicts with drugs. Boo freaking who. Again, small town, so no surprise this small town pharmacy had a couple of loopholes in it if you catch my drift. At this point, Dad finally settled on leaving her. Before, he was bluffing. But now his mind was set. He gave her a list and told her to follow it if she wanted him to stay. The list was very simple. Completely reasonable and should be expected by any spouse who isn't working. Number 1, drop the freaking drugs. Get a job. Until you get a job, clean the house every day. Get the kids up and in school every day. And for the love of God, stop spending all our money. Do the laundry and finally cook for our children. That was pretty much it. Dad was off working his behind off, and all he asked of my mother was to do her job as a mother. Can you guess how that went? $3,000 out of the bank, one more useless item, taking stuff out of Dad's credit card, and the mobile home deteriorating even further. The laundries were stacked up so much our laundry room was inaccessible. I never saw the floor of that room ever again. The room was the size of a closet, so it did not take much. So the time came. I finally turned 13. Dad waited until I was finally the age where both me and my sisters were old enough to pick which parents to live with. Not only has Mom done nothing to clean her act up, but she actually made stuff worse. Dad is a firm believer that you should hide your wealth from your spouse. He wasn't wealthy, but he was a freaking settled. At least, he could have been. Even through all this, he still did not hide the amount of money he was making from my mom, until the divorce was final. I actually did not learn of his principle of it until about a month ago when the topic came up. He told Mom one last warning, quote, "If you don't clean your ass up on your own, you're going to end up a meth head living on the street selling your body." And he did not mean that as an insult. It was a genuine warning. He had spent at least the last 15 years with this woman and knew how exactly she was going to turn out if she did not heed his warning. Naturally, she took it as an insult and just played it off like he was being a jerk. My father, being the poor, generous soul that he was, actually ended up giving Mom $500 a week just to live off. It was only for a few months because he did not want to leave her without giving her some sort of chance. On top of that, nobody can say that he screwed her over. In fact, this next plot twist will explain how much of a man my father is. Because he felt it was the man thing to do. He accepted full responsibility of the farm and went bankrupt for it. He's got the papers to prove it. He didn't recover from that until about 6 months ago. I put that in bold because it will be important later in part number 2. I just want to say, first of all, I'm so glad that the father decided to take all the responsibility of the farm, even though it cost him bankruptcy. I found a comment I want to read before we hop into the next part of this saga. It's an interesting one and it might be controversial, so if you don't agree with this, let me know in the comment section down below. It states, "I feel awful for your mother. The judgment you hold against her based off your limited memories and your father's word spills out in every sentence. It sounds like she genuinely had a health problem, and quite possibly a mental health problem. But you're too wrapped up on your father, the hero, to see that maybe he was asking too much of her, more than she was capable of doing at that point in time. This story made me need a shower. Yuck." Okay, well, I don't want to take anything away from the father, but let me know what you think of this comment. Here comes the next part. Part 2, the fallout. Eventually, because Mom wasn't getting a job or doing anything to help herself, Dad stopped giving her money. The only thing left Dad was doing for her was taking me over to her home, because, again, he felt it was the man thing to do. He accepted full responsibility of taking me and my sister over to my mother's house to see her whenever we wanted to. My sister never wanted to go over, so it was usually just me and Mom. I wanted to be fair to both parents. I wanted to stay with Mom for a week, then stay with Dad for a week. Well, during this time, Mom would try convincing me that Dad was the bad guy in the whole situation, that he was just manipulative and that he was doing drugs, while her face and skin was tearing from all the meth she's been doing in my absence. I was a bleach blonde kid growing up. I had bright hair, but during all this, I ended up staying inside more and more. My hair wasn't getting any sun. Evidently, this was the cause of my hair turning dirt brown. I don't know if that makes sense, but it's just what made sense during the time. It'd be nice to know if that was the case. I liked my blonde hair. Eventually, child services became involved. The school had notified them when they'd seen my change from disruptively energetic to quiet, falling asleep in class, and smelling awful. I wasn't socializing anymore. I was sitting alone, which was honestly because of a nasty bullying problem. I had it growing up. I went to a vile school, but that's another story. I wasn't even trying anymore. I don't know what all happened or if that's even how it went. I guess the staff noticed signs of neglect, I don't know. My grades were never spectacular, average at best. An A or two, mostly Bs, maybe a C sneaking around somewhere. But during all of this, they've taken a noticeable nosedive. Take all of this and the fact I went to school with the students that were above using my parents' divorce as a way of hurting me, I honestly became suicidal. I don't want to touch too much on that, but it's not really relevant to the story of the play-by-play, so let's get on. The school noticed that I was coming to school clean, fully rested, and only mildly participating in class. Socializing was still garbage, but again, that was a different reason. They noticed all of these improvements every week I was with my dad. Then, when I went back to my mother's, all life was just sucked out of me. So, they called my dad in, asked for an explanation to why he explained, and told him what happened. That I was staying a week with him and a week with my mother. This week, I was staying with him, so when they saw me that day, they took note of my improved health. They asked me questions, told me that I was probably going to end up living with my father, and not seeing my mom nearly as much. I don't remember this part well, but I remember the parts that my dad told me. I said I was relieved that I did not have to choose, and that, even as a kid, I knew Dad was better for me. That much I do remember saying. Dad said me saying that caught him off guard. He knew I was a huge mama's boy, and that only reason he was letting me go to mom's was because he did not want to hurt me by not letting me see her. But since I said that, Dad went whole hog-making sure mode. He got me. At least during the week. He did not want to rob Mom of seeing her children, so I still went in visits on the weekends. That's how things went for a while. I know people say, quote, "This was the best decision of my life," or "That was the best decision of my life," usually as a form of exaggeration, but I mean it cold-heartedly. I think choosing to live with my dad was truly the best decision of my life. Well, it seems OP's mother is still spiraling out of control. The next part of the series is going to be a whole different topic. We're going to talk about the sister. But first, I do want to say, in this part, I'm very glad that OP was able to get a better life just by living with his father for more. I mean, he was doing better in school, he didn't stink anymore, and the teachers were starting to take notice. So, in my opinion, I do think that's better for him. What do you guys think of that? I would love to hear your opinion on this before we hop into the sister part. And let me warn you guys, this next part is crazy. If you're enjoying this, do me one small favor right now. Smash that subscribe button, as it's the best way to support me. And let's see what this sister's been up to. Act number 3, the sister. My dad and sister suddenly stopped seeing eye to eye, which was kind of surprising to me, as I was mama's boy. She was daddy's girl. I honestly don't know what changed. I think it was a mix of my sister's adolescence and my dad coping with the divorce. My sister was constantly throwing hissy fits and not wanting to accept dad's side of the story. I don't know what her deal was. I never bothered arguing back with my parents when I was getting punished because I knew, inside, I was wrong. Such as me getting my Xbox taken away when my grades were bad, etc. I think she was spoiled growing up. She had the bigger room, the big TV, whatever phone she wanted. A bunk bed. Despite us not even sharing a room and her being only one occupying it. And she even got a laptop. When Mom and Dad divorced, Dad gave her the master bedroom and the place he got when he moved out, which had a huge bathroom with speakers in the ceiling. By this point, Mom was no longer living on the farm. In fact, my great mother, her mom, was lending her a house to live in. I didn't have her bedroom or anything. Meanwhile, I got the smallest room in the house. This upset me because, quote, "Oh my gosh, Dad, give me expensive stuff." It was the blatant favoritism. Whenever I brought it up with Dad, she was getting all the nice stuff. He always responds with, quote, "You gotta treat your girls a little more nicely, son." Which I can get, but this is more than just a more nicely. This is spoiling. I did not give a damn whether or not Dad starting to give me new expensive stuff. That's not what it was about. I just didn't understand why Dad seemed to pick her over me so much. I don't know if he wanted to give her more love since the divorce was giving her a hard time or what. To be honest, I know Dad shouldn't have picked us over the other. I know I shouldn't expect that of him, and I didn't. It was a matter of that there was no choice to be made. It felt like he picked my sister no matter what. I knew today that's likely not what it was. Maybe I was just self-conscious. Maybe he felt like his relationship with his daughter was falling apart, and he was just trying to win her love over with materialistic stuff. I'm not sure. I don't want to ask him today and let it slip. I felt like he picked a favorite child. For clarification before we get back to the story, like I said, I don't give a crap that my dad wasn't getting expensive stuff for me. That wasn't my issue. My issue was it felt like blatant favoritism. Just wanted to repeat that in case anyone read that as, "Daddy isn't buying me expensive stuff." Because I know there will be those people. Okay, back to the story. One day after a particularly bad fight between the two, she told me that Dad was the one doing drugs and not Mom. It did not register at the time, but it seems like Mom got to her. I guess she and Mom had been texting maybe. She seems to believe Mom's side over Dad, despite everything Dad has to prove. My sister has always been kind of a know-it-all. Even today, she'll be 24 in a month and will act like a child if she's proven wrong. She never could admit she's wrong. And even today in the new stuff now she's gotten herself into, she still will find a way to blame what's happened to her on Dad. Now that I think about it as I say this, maybe my sister could qualify as an entitled parent. One day, my sister meets a boy. As far as I'm aware, he's still a cool bro. He doesn't really have much relevance in the story. One day, my dad takes my sister to Mom's. All of a sudden, she wants to be at Mom's after months of not wanting to see her. I guess it makes sense considering the circumstances. Dad probably thought it could be where she could get cool things off since things were heated between him and her. She went to Mom's, who ended up taking her to the boy's house where she would stay the night. Dad caught wind of this as someone he knew saw her with the boy and brought it up. I think. I'm still not clear on how he found out. So, he calls Mom and asks her to put my sister on the phone. Mom plays dumb and says sister is with her. Dad calls bullcrap and tells her to put my sister on the phone now. And Mom changes her story. Well, she may be out with a boy right now. She'll be back later.
Maybe out with a boy right now? How do you not know where our daughter is? I just dropped her off.
I don't know what the big deal is. Dad is pissed. Dad asks where they are, and Mom continues to play dumb, saying, I thought you knew. Dad hangs up, then calls my sister. He asks where she at, and she says she's at Mom's. Boom, lie caught. Dad can't take it anymore at this point. He tells her that if she thinks she can scheme with Mom to lie to him, then she can stay with Mom. This is when he calls me up and asks me to help him pack up her things. After loading everything up, we take off into the dead of night, drop everything off in the Mom's backyard, shoot her a text, then take off like ninjas. Nobody even knew we were there until we sent that text message. Dad decides to give my sister the same treatment he gave Mom. The list. Gave her a perfectly sensible list to follow if she wants a chance to have a relationship with Dad. Number 1, good grades. Number 2, don't lie. Number 3, no going out with friends anymore. And last one, no phone. And a few other things, but I can't really remember as they weren't as big. All I know is thinking, well, shoot, I could follow this list. Although, I do think this is where Dad kind of ducked up. I mean, he basically told her, "You're gonna be punished if you come back to me." Which pretty much she's staying with Mom then. It was either Dad ducked up or I'm remembering the list incorrectly. Either way, my sister for damn sure was not coming back. Regardless, just like my dad did with my mother, he predicted that it would happen to her if she did not get her stuff together. He said she was going to become a teen mom, wasn't going to do stuff to raise her kids, and basically destroy her future. Well, what do you know? Dad was right. A year later, my sister's telling me she's pregnant. There's not a lot that happens in these next few years throughout my high school life, but maybe 2 years after her first kid, she has a second child with another baby daddy. Then, about 9 to 10 months ago, she has a third child with another baby daddy. During this time, throughout all of this, she eventually started talking to my dad again, who remarried to a woman much more worthy of being called Mom. She and Dad talked to my sister about what she can do to make things easier for herself. By this time, she was on a kid, number 2. They told her if she went to college to learn a trade or something, that could land her a good-paying job. That the colleges around here will help single mothers by providing daycare for their children while the parents go to school. This went in one ear and out the other. At this time, she and I were talking occasionally. Had a pretty meh relationship. We got along fine. One night, I was texting her, and I told her about the college daycare situation my parents told her about. She acted shocked. Told me that if she knew that, she would have considered it sooner. Despite the fact that the only reason I knew about the college daycare was because I was in the room when they told her about it. She always blows them off and anyone else who dared criticized her crappy life decisions. My grandmother and on my mother's side included. I would see her post about a new tattoo on Snapchat. Then, the very next ducking snap, she'd be crying about being too broke. Then, the next day, she was snap. 45 minutes late for work, but about to get crapped out by my crappy boss. Hee hee, mom life. I usually avoided criticizing her crappy choices because I know damn well how she'd react. But one day, she was venting about a fight her and Dad had. She told me what he said, and I knew exactly what he meant from her and her own words of the story. He said this: "Those kids aren't going to have the lives they deserve because of you." Which really means, because you keep on messing around, being lazy, making excuses, those kids won't have the lives that they deserve. He followed up the statement with that translation because it did come across harsh, but sister kinda left that part out. He said that it was her fault, because it was. She's perfectly capable of giving those kids the lives they deserve, but she just does jack shit about it. She hasn't even tried getting child support from any of the fathers because she'd, quote, feel bad about it. She wouldn't even have to work if she was getting child support from all the fathers. The first child father is actually a freaking beast. He took up full responsibility and pounces on any opportunity to see and help take care of his child. The rest are deadbeat shitheads. The way the argument started was because my sister was asking for gas money from my dad, which my dad refused. My sister's a big girl now, she can handle it herself. Plus, if she can load her butt up with piercings, tattoos, and pedicures, she can afford gas. To which she threw out this one. Well, I guess I shouldn't have expected a little help from my own father. When this all went down, I'd actually just started listening to stories about this subject when I'm working. So, when I heard she said that, the first thing that crossed my mind is my sister a choosing beggar? Best part, Dad wasn't the one who told me she said that the first time. She was. She didn't seem to realize Dad has no obligation to help her because, quote, we're family. Later, Dad told me that's what she said, and I showed him her text message to me. At this point, I couldn't keep quiet anymore. I finally told her that I too had a problem with her crappy choices. I broke down everything I've seen on her Snapchat. All her dumbass choices, choosing to get her nails done, $50 for both her and one of her kids. To which she wrote me a book, making excuse after excuse, dropping lines like, why are all of you so judgmental? And I'm a great mother. And of course, none of you understand how hard it is being a single mom. To which she got her last laughed in and blocked me. I then later heard she made a post about me online. My name wasn't dropped or anything. I wasn't the only one it was directed at either. She basically made all the same excuses as she did in the past post. I couldn't see it, but my stepmom did. Well, about a month later, she unblocked me and wished me happy birthday. We didn't really talk much, we just left it at that. And we ain't spoken to her since. Well, the more and more I read about this story, I just feel worse for the father. It seemed growing up, the sister was way better off with the dad, opposed to being with her mother. She was making horrible life decisions and choices, and it was all based on which parent she was with. Kinda similar to OP. So, I'm not very surprised that the sister grew up like this. Let me know in the comment section down below. What do you think was the root of the problem? Do you think it was the mother's drug abuse? Do you think the mother was depressed? Do you think the father could have done something more? Guys, there's still 2 parts left to this. I hope you're enjoying it as much as I am. Let's see what's happening in this next part. During all of this, I had very minimal contact with my mother. Still do. At this point, I only put as much effort into talking to her as she does me, which is only to wish me happy birthdays and happy holidays. As my father predicted about my mother, she did in fact get addicted to drugs. She has in fact been selling herself on the streets. She was a blonde, which is where I got my blonde hair when I was young, but now has very short brown hair. Pretty sure she's wearing a wig. She's been in and out of jail for so many things now. Drugs, high in public, prostitution, illegal substances. One time, she actually had sex with someone on the hood of their car. And the freaking street. I'm talking midday, butt-ass naked on the hood of someone's car. The thing is, my grandmother is convinced Mom was the victim in all of this. She thinks it's Dad's fault Mom got addicted to drugs. That it was Dad's fault she ended up homeless. That my dad did nothing to help her. Now, don't be so quick to think my grandmother is the bad guy here. I don't blame her, to be honest. Not because my dad did anything wrong. I think my dad did the best he could and then some more. But Grandma once told me that if Mom doesn't get clean, she would disown her as a child. Grandmother already lost the house she let my mom stay in, because it was condemned by the drugs within it. I don't even know, they were cooking or something. All I know is that she lost the house because of drugs. Anyways, I think when Grandma was faced with having a backup, her threat of disowning her child, she found it easier to blame someone else. In the last year's tax returns, Mom claimed she was getting $3,000 back. Somehow, not sure, then that she was going to use the $3,000 to get a car, even though her license was taken. When that $3,000 never came, she convinced Grandma it was because of the bankruptcy Dad left her in from the farm. Remember when I said that Dad had agreed within divorce that he would take responsibility of the farm, including filing bankruptcy on his account back in the first few episodes? Well, yeah, that was a flat-out lie on my mother's part. Their divorce papers even prove it. Grandma was set that this was the case and that this was all my father's fault. Let me make it clear. Grandma is not an entitled parent. Again, I think she finds it easier to believe that it was someone else's fault, rather than her child is just a drug-addicted, stupidly irresponsible woman child. Because, quote, I don't raise your mother to be like this, and I believe her. Grandma is a sweet old lady who's so close to retirement. She just really is depressed at how her child and one of her grandchildren turned out. The last time I saw my mom in person, it was outside the stadium after I graduated college last year. She, Dad, and stepmom were all there. She'd also brought along a very close friend of hers. She was no stranger to me, as her and my mother were friends ever since they were toddlers. Practically sisters. It was actually adorable. They have pictures of each other together as toddlers. Anyways, she and my dad were actually having a pretty civil conversation together that day, despite their history. Every time I saw them together, they behaved like adults and did not start any drama, thank goodness. At least, not any drama that would have started a scene. I was with my best friend, taking pictures with him, as he was the only one who could make it to my graduation outside of family. As I was with him, my mother had guilted my dad into lending her $20 for gas money. As he was about to give it to her, my stepmom swooped in and put her foot down, telling her no. My stepmom is one of those tough love types. She won't hesitate to tell you the truth if it hurts your feelings if you need to hear it. She's tough most of the time when she needs to be, and sweet as heck when she needs to be that. Know what I mean? So, she definitely had no fear of telling someone no. Mom did not make a hissy fit or anything, just accepted it and carried on the conversation. My parents was living over an hour away from me at the time, so I did not go and visit them after graduation. We had already had plans to have a celebratory dinner at my restaurant of choice that weekend, so we took our pictures, said our goodbyes, and left. I decided to stay with my mom because I could not remember the last time I saw her, and I knew I likely wasn't going to see her again for a long time. Case in point, I haven't seen her since that day. We talked and made our way to the nearby Burger King. As we were talking, she told me about the conversation with Dad about the $20. She said, quote, Your dad was about to give me 20 buckaroos, but then the hammer came down and stepmom stepped him. She did not badmouth him or anything, but when we got to Burger King, I did take note of the fact that she paid for her $15 meal with no issues after I offered to pay. We talked, had a good time, then I left. I gave her a $20 bill as at least a thank you for going out of her way to make it to my college graduation. I'd honestly expected her to have one excuse or another to miss it. The next day, stepmom sent me a screenshot. It was a message from my mother's friend I'd mentioned online. It said this: "It was nice meeting you, but your wife's kind of a beep." You see, my dad doesn't really have a social media account. He doesn't really do the whole social media game. But my stepmom created one of those social media accounts that have both of their names and images on the profile. It basically just says dad and stepmom's last name. So I'm pretty sure my mother's friend sent that knowing stepmom would likely be the first to see it. Stepmom did not reply, just blocked it, and told me, quote, "This is why we have issues with your mother." And I already believed her. I completely understand why they go out of their way to avoid her. She apologized for bickering about my mother to me, and that was that. We still see the occasional online police report involving my mom, but that's it. Seeing what my mother in jail is for in 1 week or another is as common as seeing what the weather is going to be. I honestly don't know how she's so commonly in and out of jail, as she is. I'm surprised she's not in there for the long haul at this point. Know what I mean? But, oh well. She's a big girl. If she wants to keep ruining her life, I'm not going to stop her. I'm not her mother. This really just makes me pity my grandma, who is her mother. The fact that the mother guilt-tripped OP's dad into trying to get $20 just proves that OP's mother is still up to her old shenanigans. Then OP and his mom went out later for food and she paid for it no problem. She just wanted $20 for absolutely no reason. She claimed gas. Let me know your thoughts on that. I would love to hear your opinion on this mother as of right now. There's still one more part to this story. I hope everyone's enjoying it. I hope you're having a great day. Let's see what's up with this final part. The final part. My sister's out there somewhere, has 3 kids, possibly a 4th now. I have no idea. My mother's probably back in jail again for all I know. Maybe she's scheming on how to get her next fix that'll end up landing her back in jail again. I don't know. I'm too certain what happened between my sister and mother when my sister was living with her. I don't know what happened. All I know is that mom did a little bit of babysitting here and there. Then, my sister living with my mom turned into my mom living with my sister in her own place somehow. And then there was some falling out. And then my sister was on her own in her place with the kids. And my mother moved in with her lifelong friend that I mentioned. That one paragraph pretty much summed up everything I know about what happened to them in between me graduating and now. If you made it this far, congratulations. Now you pretty much know my damn near entirety of my life story. Outside of my school life, all I really left out was that the year after my parents divorced, we ended up moving schools because my bullying problem had gotten so bad. Eventually, my whole suicide thing was used against me too. I couldn't freaking take it anymore. So we moved, and oh my gosh, I can't tell you the euphoria of the paradise my new school was. Sure, there was some jerks there, but what school doesn't have a jerk or two, eh? Gosh, it was so much better. Imagine going from walking in a hot desert, suffocating, to graciously swimming in all the water you could drink. That was how strong the difference was. It was here that I met my 2 best friends. I hope the 3 of us are together until we're back in diapers again in a nursing home. Anyways, that's irrelevant. My school issues were only touched up on here, and there's due to its relevancy of the story. I was bullied hard. That's all you need to know. It's a different story entirely that holds almost no weight here. I just wanted to share it that I turned out fine in the end. Things got really hard after the divorce. Well, harder afterwards. The divorce gave all of my bullies ammunition. Nothing was too low for them. If it would hurt me, they would go for it. But hey, they're all druggies, pregnant, and living with their parents or in jail. Or some sort of combination of the aforementioned. The best revenge against your bullies is to outlive them. My dad and stepmom bought a new house. They have a sweet, loving relationship together that I'm certain will last until death do they part. About a week after my college graduation, I too signed off on and got a house. I know what to do with myself and how to do it. I'm 21 years old and have my life on track. I'm also following my dream to become an animator and have well over 2,500 hours of animation work under my belt. It's become my passion. I don't mean to sound like I'm bragging, I just want to share that things are better now. I'm only really sad that my sister isn't having her own good things going on. Growing up, she was the good one, the pretty one, the smart one, the most talented pitcher on her softball team, the lead in their basketball team. Dad and I often wonder what really went wrong. Maybe it's our arrogance, maybe it's our hubris. We don't know if it's really our fault. Hell, most of this was before I graduated high school. I don't even know if I remember right. Dad, for sure, is certain he did something wrong. There are a few things he wishes he did differently, but I don't blame him. For a while, I was all he had left. Before my stepmother, it was just me and him. He had lost his lovely farm, home, daughter, wife, and his son was all he had left. Everything that was happening to me in school just came head to head at a terrible time for him. I know most kids wish they had one parent as great as I see my father. I'm far beyond grateful for everything he's done for me. And it's kind of telling which parents was better for their child. Me, who finished growing up with Dad, went to college, learned a trade, moved out before turning 20, got a house at 21, and have a plan for the next few years of my life to get settled. Sister, who's finished growing up with Mom, barely finished high school, and now has 3 kids with as many baby daddies before even turning 23. I know my sister can do better for herself, but she just won't do it. And she has to do it now since she's got kids she's raising on her own. I hate to say it, but she's likely going to have CPS knocking on her door someday. That's pretty much it for this time. I'll read this monstrosity through to check for any errors. Ask me anything in the comment section below and I'll try to clear it up. At this point, I don't see a reason to even talk about the mother anymore. I really hope that OP's sister can have a change of heart. I would hate to see CPS knocking on her door, but you never know. If OP's sister doesn't change, she's going to be down the exact same path as the mother. Let me know about all these updates in the comment section down below. I would love to discuss this with you guys. My name's Mr. Reddito. Have an amazing night. I'll see you in the next video.